boys. We're coming apart at the seams. Welcome back, everybody. This is the Jason Stapleton program, broadcasting live from the Random Walk Studios, deep in the heart of America. And we got an interesting chat to have today. This is going to be more interesting for those of you who are like more hardcore-ish libertarians, or who are at least are deeply involved in the inner workings of what's going on and what certain libertarians are saying about other libertarians. And it's interesting gossip, but there's a point to it. So I would never just bring to you a bit of inside baseball gossip if it didn't have a larger and more applicable discussion point behind it. But we are, with all the problems focused around Gary Johnson, Bill Weld, and the problems and the issues they've had with delivering a cohesive and concise libertarian message. Many people are starting to really get frustrated. I got my first "I will not apologize" email. Someone was mad enough at me that they took the time to write. This just proves to you that I read every email that you send. He was mad enough at me that he sent me an email saying, "I will not apologize to you." And I could tell he hasn't been listening very long, because he talked about how I had abandoned Gary Johnson, as though at some point I had been supporting him and I had been but now all of a sudden I've just changed my mind. No. For those of you who have been listening to this show for a long time, you knew that I've never been in the Johnson camp, and I had been warning all of you for so long. Hence the reason I was requesting your apologies. But he didn't want to give me one, so that's fine. You don't have to apologize. Just know that you're wrong, and we can continue to operate as friends. But people are going all kinds of different places. I saw Libertarian Hangout, I think, which is becoming a very popular site on Facebook, a group on Facebook, and they've got a website as well, Libertarian Hangout. You guys should go check it out, because they do write some really good articles and some stuff that will challenge your thinking. You may not always agree with them, but it's nice to hear a different perspective. I happen to kind of like the website and some of their writers, although, again, don't agree on everything. And they endorsed Daryl Perry, I think, which I find confusing, because if you think that Gary Johnson is a poor carrier of the message, Daryl Perry wouldn't be helping you out at all. You just do a little bit of research. He's not. I don't think he's a bad person. I think he is very principled in terms of what he believes. But he does not come off well in a debate or in a discussion. And so I just found it odd that they would, well, maybe it's just from the principled standpoint. They said, well, obviously, if we can't get a decent guy to run, we'll go find the most principled candidate we can, and we'll endorse him. And if that's the case, that's fine. I got nothing against Daryl, other than the fact that I didn't think he was going to be a good messenger. But we're way beyond the messaging point at this stage of the game, gents. And then I was trolling through Facebook, scrolling down, and I saw that Austin Petersen had done a video. And his video was on Ron Paul. And he was not very happy with Ron Paul. And he started off the little message by saying, "I don't want to do this. This is the type of stuff that is going to get me in trouble. It's the type of conversation that everybody tells me not to have." And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, you probably shouldn't talk about this. Yeah, that's probably not going to be good for you and for your long-term prospects in the libertarian camp is to have it out with Ron Paul in a live feed. And a lot of the statements that were coming back to him while he was typing were not very nice. So it exemplified the point that he was making. But Ron has been going out and has been dismissive, if not critical, of Gary Johnson and Bill Weld as well. And he has started to float Jill Stein's name. Now, Jill Stein, of course, is the Green Party candidate. And I'm going to play for you the clip, because immediately after he got done, after Austin Petersen, who was one of the candidates who was running for Libertarian president this year, did not win. He lost to Gary Johnson, of course. He played this, and immediately afterwards, the notes started coming in. "Oh, you're misquoting Ron. You're the great one. How dare you? You're such a liar. Yeah, this is typical of you, Austin Petersen." And I thought, oh, is he lying? I mean, did he fudge the truth? As I said, Austin lives here in town. We live in the same town. We are we're friendly while not being friends. That's kind of the way we don't play golf together, but we are friendly and have a good relationship. And I didn't strike me as the type of guy who would lie about something like that, because it serves no purpose for him other than creating controversy for himself. And so I want to play for you the clip that he played. And do you have that one queued up? It's going to be Austin. No, it'll be the
interview.
Austin, yeah, the actual no, the actual interview of him. I don't think it's that one. It's that one. There you go. So I'm going to play for you the interview that he gave. This was what Austin played as evidence that Ron Paul was having some problems with his own messaging and was advocating for Jill Stein. And his argument is basically, well, if you're going for Jill Stein instead of Gary Johnson, you might as well be supporting Donald Trump, because Donald Trump has more libertarian views than Jill Stein does. But let me play for you the clip so that you know what we're talking about. Go ahead.
Whomever they want, and it probably won't matter much. No, I don't tell them. But if they want to vote Libertarian, I said, because I'm disappointed with the performance of the Libertarian leaders. But I stick to the principle that the Libertarian believes in the non-aggression principle. The market works and freedom works if you accept one law, and that law is you can't do harm to other people. But government shouldn't be able to do harm to other people. But if you stick to that principle, voting, Libertarian, and sort of recognizing what you're doing. But I think if you have a sincere progressive, and I know them, I've worked with them, and they say, well, one of the most important issues for me is civil liberties and a change in our foreign policy, I think Jill Stein, vote for.
So he said, this is the argument that Petersen was making. He said, why on earth would you tell someone to go vote for Jill Stein? Why? Because she's got a dovish foreign policy? Because she wants to end the wars overseas? Because that's really what Ron Paul is advocating. He's like, well, hey, if you happen to be a wild and crazy progressive, rather than voting for Hillary Clinton, who is very much in favor of creating a no-fly zone in Syria, which would likely bring us into a world war with both Russia and Syria, perhaps we would go with someone like Jill Stein because she's anti-war. But he is, at the same time as he is promoting Jill Stein over perhaps a Hillary Clinton, he is denigrating and criticizing Gary Johnson. Now, again, as you guys know, I have no love for Gary Johnson, but it is a bit confusing. And this was really the crux of what Austin was trying to say, is he's saying it's muddled what you're doing. It doesn't make sense. There's no cohesive message anymore. No one can really tell where you're coming from. Cue up what Austin said. So this was Austin's response to the video, and I want you to listen to it. Go ahead.
I think that everybody deserves a little bit of criticism from time to time. And my problem has always been, because I'm such a libertarian, that I think that we have too much of a cult of personality in this movement. And the problem with being a politician or running for office, is, if you're a libertarian, is that you're simultaneously in a situation where you have to say, I need a cult of personality, because you need a group of people to support you no matter what. And then you also have to say, I despise the cult of personality. So I think that there is a dangerous cult of personality around Ron Paul, and I've been thinking this for years. And it's very dangerous for me to even say this to you, simply because there are a lot of people who are going to make sure that I never get to speak at conferences because I criticized Dr. Ron Paul. As a matter of fact, one of my biggest critics during my presidential campaign was a man who was attacking me because of my attacks on Ron Paul. And my attacks on Ron Paul weren't attacks on Ron Paul per se, but on the way that he builds his message, which I think is now somewhat incoherent.
I think that, folks, I know I'm going to probably take heat for this, but I think that's a fair criticism. And for those of you who think that it was only this one interview that he gave on Fox Business, I want to pull up an interview that he did with MSNBC. And Darren, how did I label those? The first one is, how did I label?
You've got Stein, no endorsement, and then non-aggression.
Yeah, so do the no endorsement one first. So this is the original question was, hey, so you've endorsed it. This is kind of odd because you're supposed to be a libertarian, and you've now endorsed Jill Stein. What do you say about this? And he corrects the record.
I think there's a little bit of misinformation there because I haven't endorsed anybody. I haven't told any supporters who are interested for whom they should vote. But I have mentioned her name because I have to look for bits and pieces in all the candidates that come up and try to put it together and have a libertarian message.
So let's play the next one on Stein, and then I'll make my comments because you kind of need to hear the whole thing in together. So you've heard Austin's criticism of having a very incoherent message on what you believe and who you should be voting for. You've now heard Ron Paul set the record straight and say, I'm not endorsing anyone, but I do think that she's good on some things, and basically he said, I've got a job of looking around and trying to pick and choose and find things that this person's good at and that person's good at and kind of support them. This is what he said specifically about Stein.
I have, in a way, made the statement that, people, if they're unhappy with the two major candidates, and I think that's the case for a lot of people, that's the majority of the people that are unhappy. And I said that if the independents who don't know what to do and who should they pick, I say if you tend to lead toward progressivism and liberalism and you, are interested in expressing yourself, you can vote for the Green Party because certainly you could say, well, I like a lot of what she says about civil liberties, and I like what she says about foreign policy. She's probably at best on foreign policy at the moment.
So here is, as near as I can tell, this is what Paul's position is on voting this year. I don't like the Libertarian candidate for reasons that we've all laid out on this show. And I spend my days trying to figure out and look at this person and this candidate, and this guy's got good, maybe he's good on foreign policy, and this person's good on ending the Fed, and this person's good on reducing taxes, and I've got to kind of like point out all the good things about all these different candidates. And he went on to say in that interview that he had worked with people across the aisle where it made sense for them to work together. But he is strongly advocating for Jill Stein while at the same time criticizing the Libertarian candidate, Gary Johnson. And that does present a rather muddled message, I think. And so what Austin was trying to point out, if you go and listen to the entire 25 minutes that he did, he was trying to point out that look, he was making a case for Gary Johnson or even a Donald Trump over a Jill Stein. But I want to give you an idea of just how bad Jill Stein is, because for those of you who are thinking, well, maybe there's something to this, maybe I better look at Jill Stein as an option. Here's some of the beliefs and some of the things that she advocates for in her platform. Now, this thing is pages long, and I'm going to read for you a few of the highlights on the first couple of pages, right? First, enact an emergency Green New Deal to turn the tide of climate change. Initiate a World War II scale national mobilization to halt climate change, the greatest threat to humanity in our history. Create 20 million new jobs by transitioning to 100% clean renewable energy by 2030. Just going to create them. Just create those 20 million new jobs. We can write it down. Of course she's going to do it because it's written down. No, there's no explanation of how this gets done, but it's just what we're going to do. Enact energy democracy based on public, community, and worker ownership of the energy system. What do you think that is? That's socialism, folks. That's workers controlling the means of production, right? She wants to transfer and create a direct democracy, an energy democracy, by taking ownership of energy production from the people who actually own the facilities and transferring it to the people.
I mean, why not? It worked so well in Venezuela.
It worked phenomenally well in Venezuela. We have an actual test case of where they implemented this exact policy. And it worked phenomenally well. Go read about Venezuela. I don't have time to talk about it, but it's stellar. It's beautiful how well it's working out. Next, halt any investment in fossil fuel infrastructure, including natural gas, and phase out all fossil fuel power plants. So the government is just going to say you can no longer invest in fossil fuels, whether you want to or not, and we're just going to phase out all of the fossil fuel, all of the current fossil fuel facilities that create the energy that we use. But don't worry about it, because we're going to create 20 million new jobs by moving over to alternative energy. Next, support a strong, enforceable global climate change treaty that limits global warming to no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. I'd love to see the plan on that one. Next, adopt the precautionary principle. Think about this for a moment. Adopt the precautionary principle. When an activity poses threats of harm to human health or the environment, in the absence of objective scientific consensus that it is safe, precautionary measures should be taken. The proponent of an activity rather than the public should bear the burden of proof. So she is saying, no longer are you innocent until proven guilty. If someone decides in government or in one of these agencies or one of these militant nonprofit groups, decides that what you're doing might potentially cause harm, it will be your responsibility to prove conclusively through scientific evidence that it is completely 100% safe. Otherwise, the government should have the right to impose any kind of restriction it deems necessary. The precautionary principle. Don't you love the way they lay these out? Doesn't this sound like the type of woman we want running the country? Doesn't this sound like the type of libertarian, principled person that we would want to follow and support?
Why do you hate safety, Jason?
I just do. I just do, Darren. I shouldn't have to explain myself. All right. Now, how about jobs and rights? Key support for labor. Well, she wants to create a living wage job for every American who needs work, replacing unemployment offices with employment offices. Government would be the employer of last resort, and the unemployed would have an enforceable right to make government provide work. You see, if you don't have a job, government should just create one for you out of thin air.
You go dig a hole, and then the guy next to you will fill it back up.
And we'll
pay you a living wage.
I haven't told this story in a while, but during the Great Depression, they had all these work projects. And if you go to Dodge City, this was a story that I was told by a couple of family members. So I'm assuming this story is true, although I hadn't validated it through any historian. But in Dodge City, Kansas, where I used to live, there are sections of the roads that are still laid with brick. And it's really cool. It's an old part of the city, and some of them have been paved over, but there's still areas where the old brick that was laid during the Great Depression are still there. And during that time, my great grandfather couldn't find work. And so for a short period of time, he was on one of these government jobs, and they were laying the bricks in these streets. And he said, the story goes that they got done laying all of the bricks, and they didn't have any more work to do, so they went back and they flipped all the bricks over. And so they turned all the bricks. So when you're looking at the bricks, the story is, as my father was telling me, so when you look at the bricks, he said that brick was originally facing down because they had to flip all the bricks over as they to provide more work. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we can take some time to discuss this. I don't talk about this and share these with you because I want to get into a long economic discussion about why this is bad. But where does this money come from? You know, jobs are not created for the worker's benefit. Jobs are created because there is a necessity to fill a role. This will become important as we go through this and we start talking about advancing other workers' rights that she wants to do. But the indication, a lot of these leftists, a lot of these progressives think that, you know what,